So, now that we know what deviance is, let's take a look at a few examples in the Church's history. A huge and an obvious case to look at on this topic is the case of Jesus himself and what he looked like when it came to deviance within the Church. If one were to dig into the Bible, it is pretty easy to notice how much Jesus went against the norms of society, particularly within religion. He went against what religious authorities said were accepted. One well-known example of looking at this is the very people he decided to spend his time with. Religious leaders during this era spent their time with prestigious people who were among the same rankings as them, people who were well put together, who had good reputations, and who abided by the laws and moral regulations that those leaders believed in. Jesus, on the complete contrary to societal norms, spent majority of his time with the people who were considered to be some of the lowliest of the social chain, the outcasts. For example, Matthew the tax collector. At this time in history, tax collectors were not very well-liked people. They were known to be scammers and would take more money than the state needed, and for the most part, everyone had a negative attitude towards them. Jesus, however, took Matthew to be one of his closest friends and had chosen him to be among the people he gave most to, despite the reputation that he had. Another example of when Jesus was a deviant is when he didn't adhere to the social and traditional norms. He was deviant in the way of the traditional rules followed by society. In the text Nazareth's rebellious son, Deviance and Downward Mobility in the Galilean Jesus movement, it gives an explanation as to why Jesus was considered to be such a deviant in the social context. During this patriarchal era, there was a deep value for honoring one's family and particularly the father. Basically, everything in life was aimed towards the goal of caring for the parents of the family, especially if you were a son. However, Jesus actually left his family in Nazarene to go to Capernaum, which at the time was a complete disgrace to the whole family. Jesus also did not only lose honor in the eyes of his family, but the entire village. Sons at this point in time were raised purely for the purpose of obedience to their father, so the fact that Jesus was not only disobedient but left his entire family was nearly unheard of. When it comes to the law, Jesus was also one to be deviant in this context. For example, in the book of Matthew, Jesus breaks the Sabbath by allowing his disciples to pluck and eat the grains of the field as they were hungry. Now, to us in this day and age, this may not seem like it would be the biggest deal, but this was a huge scandal for this era. It says in Matthew, a commentary by Janine K. Brown, that devotion to the Sabbath was a pillar of Judaism. So to break this was something that brought dismay to all, breaking essentially a pillar of Judaism. And Jesus was the one to break this. Now, when it comes to the structural functional view on these examples, it can be illustrated well using Durkheim's basic insight on the 4 essential functions of deviance. The first of the 4 essential functions of deviance is that deviance affirms cultural values and norms. When Jesus acted in defiance against his family by leaving them, this affirmed the norm or expected behavior of the son of the family to be the one who always stays and walks in complete obedience to his father. The second is that responding to deviance clarifies moral boundaries. This is a case of the Sabbath, where the moral boundary was that it was wrong to work on the Sabbath, yet Jesus continued to allow his disciples to quote-unquote work and give context to what this law actually meant. He created or tried to create new understanding of a previous moral boundary, giving clarification. Number 3 is responding to deviance brings people together. Once again, Jesus' deviancy did bring people together, even on both sides of the argument. Jesus leaving his family brought together the village that he left, affirming their morals that they believed that the sons should be there for their fathers. Jesus' deviancy also brought other parts of the society together, such as him hanging out with the people who are considered to be less than. And lastly, number 4 says that deviance encourages social change. Jesus did bring social change. This once again can be seen through the way that people who were once outcasts were now part of a community and felt like they were seen and valued, something that everyone needs. In conclusion, it can be seen through the life of Jesus that deviancy does hold a purpose, and despite the bad reputation it may carry, it has the ability to bring about social change.
Created using Powtoon.